Nobody took Isabella Santos seriously at the small diner where she worked on Miami Beach. At 35, standing only 5 feet 2 inches, she was always smiling, just another waitress. Until that terrible night when restaurant manager Jonathan screamed, "Isabella, stop them." At that moment, Isabella dropped her notepad and transformed into someone completely different before everyone's eyes. Welcome to the Human Tales, where we uncover the extraordinary stories hidden in ordinary lives. Today's story will show you that heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear pink aprons and serve coffee with a smile. Subscribe and join our community of storytellers who believe that every person has a story worth telling. Sunrise Diner sat in the heart of Miami Beach, just 2 blocks from Ocean Drive. Squeezed between Art Deco buildings, this nostalgic spot was beloved by both locals and tourists alike. With its red leather booths, checkered floors, and neon lights, it was a typical American diner. Isabella Santos had become the soul of this place since she started working here. Every morning at 6 a.m., she'd arrive, put on her pink uniform, tie back her black hair, and start the day with that famous smile. Customers loved her, especially the elderly Jewish couple Morty and Rose Goldstein, who came every Sunday and insisted on sitting only at Isabella's tables. "Isabella, querida," Rose would say every time, "you're like a daughter to us." Isabella would always respond with the same warmth, "You're like family to me too, Mrs. Goldstein." But nobody knew that Isabella Santos's real family had disappeared in Colombia 5 years ago. Nobody knew that deep wounds hid behind that warm smile. And nobody certainly knew that Isabella Santos was actually Major Isabella Santos, a former member of the U.S. Army Delta Force, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. This morning was like any other. Isabella had left home at 5:45, riding her bike to work. Pedaling through Miami's humid air wasn't easy, but Isabella preferred it. Staying physically fit wasn't just a habit for her. It was a survival necessity. Restaurant manager Jonathan Martinez was 45, Puerto Rican, good-hearted but somewhat anxious. He loved Isabella because she was the restaurant's most reliable employee. Never late, never cold and sick, never had problems with customers. "Buenos dias, Isabella," said Jonathan, checking accounts at the register. "Good morning, Jonathan. How was your weekend?" Isabella replied with a perfect American accent. Jonathan was always amazed. Isabella's English was so flawless that sometimes he forgot she was foreign. Yet Isabella's native language was Spanish, and her perfect English came from years of intensive military training. At 7 o'clock, the first customers began arriving. Isabella had put on her uniform, tied back her hair, and applied pink lipstick. She looked like a typical diner waitress. But if you looked carefully, you could notice details in her movements that differed from an ordinary waitress. Isabella never turned her back to customers. She always positioned herself where she could see the exits. Even while taking orders, she scanned the environment, evaluating every new customer. This was a habit developed from years of living in enemy territory. Cook Carlos Rodriguez was 50, a Cuban man. He'd speak Spanish with Isabella and thought he was in love with her, but Isabella always kept her distance. "Bella, you're beautiful but so cold," Carlos would say. "Why don't you ever get close to anyone?" Isabella would smile. "I love my job, Carlos. That's enough for me." But the truth was much more complex. After the trauma she experienced 5 years ago, Isabella couldn't get close to anyone. Leaving Delta Force had been a decision for her family, but the price of that decision had been very heavy. Isabella Santos, whose real name was Major Isabella Santos, had joined Delta Force in 2015, part of the first generation when women were admitted to this elite unit. Growing up as the daughter of Colombian immigrant parents, she had risen rapidly in the military community with her perfect physical condition and intelligence level, taking part in special operations. Between 2015 and 2020, she had participated in a total of 47 covert operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Africa. Her code name was Shadow because she had an unmatched ability to infiltrate enemy lines. Her small stature, ability to assume different identities, and deadly close combat techniques made her a perfect operator. But everything changed in 2020. During a cartel operation in Colombia, Isabella's identity was exposed and the cartel targeted her family. Her mother, Maria, father Carlos, and little brother Diego, all three were kidnapped, and Isabella never saw them again. After this trauma, Isabella left Delta Force, came to Miami, and began living under a new identity. She no longer wanted to fight. She just wanted a normal, ordinary, safe life. But the past never completely stays behind. As days passed, Isabella had established a place for herself at Sunrise Diner. Customers loved her. Co-workers trusted her. Especially the elderly customers treated her like family. Frank Morrison, 72, a retired police officer, would sit at the same table every morning and order coffee from Isabella. "You're special, Isabella," Frank would say, "but the sadness in your eyes, what have you experienced?" Isabella would laugh every time. "You're getting old, Frank. You have very romantic thoughts." Nelfie? But Frank wasn't wrong. Having worked as a police officer for years, he had learned to read people. He knew there was something hidden in Isabella. Lunch hours were the busiest times. Businessmen, tourists, local residents. The restaurant was always full. Isabella would swim through this crowd like a fish, monitor all tables, and never make a mistake. One day, when the customer at table 7 approached Isabella, she reflexively took a defensive position. The customer just wanted to pay the bill, but Isabella's body had automatically switched to combat mode. "Sorry," she had said afterward. "I thought something was wrong." These small moments reminded her that her past had never completely stayed behind. That Tuesday, Isabella was restless from morning. She didn't know exactly why, but her sixth sense, developed over years on battlefields, was telling her something. The atmosphere in the restaurant was different. Customers were acting normal, but Isabella noticed small details. At 10 a.m., different customers than usual had come. 2 men sat at table 12, constantly scanning the environment. After placing their orders, they preferred talking more than eating. While Isabella observed them, she noticed the men were also watching her. "Isabella, what does table 12 want?" Jonathan asked. "I don't know, but they don't seem like normal customers to me." Jonathan laughed. "You're too suspicious. Maybe they're businessmen." But Isabella's instincts weren't wrong. Those 2 men were the reconnaissance team for what would happen that evening. At 3 p.m., the restaurant had entered a quiet period. Isabella tried to use this time to catch her breath, but a message on her phone put her on alert. The message came from an unknown number. "Isabella Santos, I found you. Tonight is reckoning time." Isabella's hand trembled. Who could this be? Someone from her past? The cartels? Or, Isabella, are you okay? Jonathan asked, seeing her pale face. I'm fine, just a little tired. But Isabella wasn't fine. What she'd feared for 5 years was happening. Her past had found her. That evening, during shift change, Isabella wanted to go home, but Jonathan stopped her. Isabella, Mike is sick. You'll need to work extra tonight. Isabella wanted to object, but couldn't, because she needed the money and Jonathan trusted her. Okay, I'll stay. This decision would change the course of her life. The night shift started at 11. Only a few customers remained in the restaurant. Elderly woman Dorothy, reading a book at a corner table, drunk Jake sitting at the bar, and young couple Mike and Sarah at the table by the window. Isabella continued operating the restaurant with Jonathan and cook Carlos. But the tension kept building. She flinched at every door opening, every car sound. At 11:30, the electricity cut out momentarily and came back. Jonathan thought it was a grid problem, but Isabella knew this wasn't coincidence. Someone was testing the restaurant's electrical system. Jonathan, we should close early tonight, Isabella said. Why? It's still early. I have a bad feeling. Jonathan laughed. Isabella, you worry too much. Everything's normal. But Isabella's worries would prove justified. At 11:47, the restaurant door opened. 3 men entered. All wore black hoodies, their faces covered with ski masks. As one of them turned, Isabella saw the gun tucked into his belt. Isabella immediately went on alert. With the reflexes from years of training, she mentally mapped everyone's position in the restaurant, the exits, potential weapons that could be used. Man 1, 6 feet tall, powerfully built, main arm man, leader position. Man 2, 5 feet 9 inches, agile looking, probably security. Man 3, 5 feet 7 inches, young, nervous, probably inexperienced. Isabella completed this analysis in 3 seconds. Good evening, the leader said, speaking hoarsely to mask his voice. Restaurant's closing. Jonathan stepped forward. Excuse me. We haven't closed yet. What do you want? Instead of answering, the leader pulled out his guns from his belt. .45 caliber black. Scratches on the side showed it had been used before. Everyone on the ground now. Panic started in the restaurant. Dorothy screamed. Mike and Sarah hid under the table. Jake sobered up despite being drunk and understood the seriousness of the situation. At that moment, Isabella had to make a critical decision. Would she act like the others and hide, or would she intervene? Everyone get down, the leader shouted again. Let me see your hands. Dorothy, Mike, Sarah, and Jake got on the ground. Carlos came out of the kitchen and froze when he saw the situation. Jonathan began sinking to the ground with trembling hands, but Isabella didn't move. Hey you! Pink uniform. I'm talking to you. Get down! Isabella slowly turned. There was no longer fear in her eyes. Instead, the cold determination she'd been trying to suppress for 5 years had returned. Please don't hurt anyone, Isabella said, no tremor in her voice. If you want money, we can open the register. The leader laughed. Money? No, beautiful. We didn't come for money. The second man stepped forward. We came for Isabella Santos. At that moment, a great silence fell over the restaurant. Jonathan looked at Isabella in shock. They're looking for you? Isabella's heart raced, but her voice remained calm. Who are you confusing me with? The leader approached. We're not confused. Major Isabella Santos, Delta Force, Remember the Colombia operation? That's when Isabella's mask completely fell. Jonathan, Carlos, and the customers looked at her in disbelief. "Delta Force," Jonathan murmured. The third man spoke nervously. "The boss wants her. Alive." Isabella understood the situation. Someone surviving from the Colombian cartel had found her and wanted revenge. But to get to her, they were endangering innocents. "If you have business with me, let the others go," Isabella said. The leader smirked. "You're not in a position to give orders." At that moment, Isabella made her critical decision. It was time to reveal the identity she'd been trying to hide for 5 years. "Jonathan," Isabella said, her eyes still on the armed men. "Stop them." Jonathan looked confused. "Isabella, what are you saying? Trust me. And everyone close your eyes." Isabella's body language completely changed at that moment. The soldier identity she'd been trying to hide for 5 years returned. Her shoulders straightened. Her posture became professional. Her eyes focused on targeting. "Last chance," Isabella said, no longer any tremor in her voice. "Let the others go and come with me." The leader pointed his gun at Isabella. "You're still trying to give orders." Isabella smiled. This wasn't the fake smile she gave customers. This was the cold, calculated smile she showed enemies on the battlefield. "I'm not giving orders. I'm counting. 3, 2... As the leader was about to pull the trigger, Isabella moved. Reflexes she hadn't used for 5 years but never forgot kicked in. Isabella rolled right, fell behind a table, and simultaneously threw the coffee plate in her hand at the leader's gun. The plate hit the gun. The leader lost his balance. As the second man tried to target Isabella, she came out from under the table and grabbed the man's ankle, pulling him down. The man fell. His gun slipped from his hand. The third man began firing in panic, but Isabella was already moving. Knowing the restaurant's layout perfectly, Isabella ran toward the kitchen door and shouted to Carlos, "Stay down." As the leader tried to get up, Isabella approached him. Years of learned Krav Maga and military combat techniques kicked in. She twisted the leader's hand, made him drop his gun, and neutralized him. As the third man ran toward Isabella, she used the large pan she took from the kitchen as a shield and knocked him unconscious. In 30 seconds, 3 armed men had been neutralized. A great silence fell over the restaurant. Dorothy stared with her mouth open. Mike and Sarah couldn't come out from under the table. Jake seemed to have sobered up from his drunkenness. That's when Jonathan screamed, "Isabella, you said stop them. What did that mean?" Isabella was breathing heavily, but her voice was still calm. "I'll explain later, Jonathan." Police arrived 10 minutes later. Isabella could have fled the scene because the attackers had been neutralized. But she didn't run, because she was tired of hiding. Detective Maria Rodriguez spoke to Isabella in Spanish. "¿Cómo pudiste hacer esto? How could you do this?" Isabella replied, "Entrenamiento militar." Military training. The detective was surprised. "Eres militar? Are you military?" "Era. Delta Force." "I was. Delta Force." Meanwhile, Jonathan, Carlos, and the customers looked at Isabella in amazement. Was this the same sweet waitress they'd known since morning? Jonathan approached. "Isabella, is this real? Were you really a soldier?" Isabella nodded. "Former soldier. Now I'm just a waitress." "But how? I mean, where did you learn these things?" Isabella sat down, tired. "Long story, Jonathan. Detective Rodriguez began questioning. These men were specifically looking for you. Why? Isabella took a deep breath. Because of an operation 5 years ago in Colombia. What operation? Cartel operation. My family was killed because of that operation. The detective's expression changed. Cartel? This is a serious matter. Isabella nodded. I know. That's why I came here, to build a new life. Jonathan was still in shock. So you can really do those things? Isabella laughed, but this time it was a real smile. Jonathan, I've been working here for 5 years. I'm still the same person. Carlos came out of the kitchen. Dios mío, Isabella, eres una guerrera. My God, Isabella, you're a warrior. Era una guerrera, Carlos. Ahora soy camarera. I was a warrior, Carlos. Now I'm a waitress. The next day, the incident made local news. Diner waitress's secret identity. Former Delta Force operator neutralizes 3 armed attackers in restaurant. The headline created great interest in Miami. When Isabella came to work, the restaurant was full of customers. Everyone wanted to see her. But Isabella wasn't ready for this. Jonathan, I want to return to normal, she said. Isabella, you become famous. People are coming to see you. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be a waitress. But customers didn't think so. The couple at table 5 kept watching her. The man at table 8 was trying to take photos with his phone. Frank Morrison sat in his usual spot. Isabella, I heard about last night. You're a really hero. Isabella sat down. I'm not a hero, Frank. I'm just someone trying to survive. But what you did? What I did was the result of my training, not my choice. Frank held her hand. Isabella, whatever your past is, you're a good person. Everyone knows that. These words greatly affected Isabella. This was the feeling of acceptance she'd been waiting for 5 years. Over the weekend, Isabella tried to decide how her life would continue. The FBI had contacted her. Her former commander from Delta Force, Colonel James Mitchell, had called. Isabella, we want you back, the colonel had said. Sir, I left that life behind. But you're still one of the best. Your country needs you. Isabella hesitated. Sir, I don't want to fight anymore. Sometimes we have to fight, Isabella. This conversation made Isabella think. Could she really return to normal? That evening, Jonathan spoke with her. Isabella, if you want to leave, I'll understand. Where would I go, Jonathan? This is my home. But now your real identity is known. Isabella looked outside. Jonathan, I ran for 5 years. I'm tired of running now. So will you stay? Isabella smiled. I'll stay, but with one condition. What? Everyone should see me as just Isabella. Waitress Isabella, not soldier Isabella. Jonathan nodded. Agreed. As months passed, Isabella adapted to her new life. Customers now knew who she was, but most continued to see her as just a waitress. This was what Isabella wanted. But some things had changed. She felt safer now. She didn't have to hide her past. And most importantly, she felt valuable again. Dorothy would come every day and talk with Isabella. Dear, you're a very strong woman. I'm not strong, Dorothy. I just learned to survive. Surviving is also a type of strength. Isabella thought about these words. Maybe Dorothy was right. One day a young girl came to the restaurant. About 16, she looked shy. "Excuse me, are you Isabella Santos?" "Yes, I'm Isabella. How can I help you?" "I'm Maria. I came for an interview for the school newspaper." Isabella laughed. "Sorry, Maria. I don't give interviews, but you inspire people, especially young girls." Isabella stopped. "How do I inspire?" "You show that you're strong. You show that women can fight too." Isabella sat down. "Maria, I didn't fight to fight. I fought to protect." "That's an even better reason." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Well, what do you want to ask?" Maria's interview was published in the local newspaper. Isabella talked not about her military past, but about her perfect integration and contribution to the community. "The past doesn't matter," she had said in the interview. "What matters is what you do now." After this interview, Isabella began receiving invitations from different places to speak with young girls, to participate in women's rights events. "Isabella, you've become a role model for society," Jonathan said. "I'm just trying to be myself." Sometimes being yourself is enough to inspire others. Isabella had never thought about this. Maybe instead of completely forgetting her past, she could draw strength from it. A few months later, Miami-Dade County Sheriff's Office made Isabella a special offer to work as a consultant in local police training. "You could teach how to treat crime victims," Sheriff Martinez said. Isabella thought, "Is this a full-time job?" "No, part-time. You can continue your job at Sunrise Diner." Isabella discussed this offer with Jonathan. "What do you think?" "I think it's a perfect idea. You can stay here and contribute to society." Isabella accepted the offer. Isabella's new routine was as follows. 4 days a week she worked as a waitress at Sunrise Diner. 2 days she worked as a consultant at the police training center. This double life gave her both normalcy and a sense of purpose. On her first training day, when Isabella was introduced to the young police officers, some were skeptical. They wondered what the 5 feet 2 inches woman standing before them could teach them. "I didn't come to teach you tactics," Isabella said. "I came to teach you empathy." Young police officer Rodriguez asked, "Empathy? How is that police work?" Isabella smiled. "Officer Rodriguez, what do crime victims feel when they talk to you?" "I don't know. Safe? Number. Most of the time they feel fear. Because your uniform reminds them of power. And power can sometimes be triggering for someone who has experienced trauma." As the lessons continued, Isabella's true value was understood. She wasn't just someone with tactical knowledge, but also someone who had experienced trauma and still rebuilt her life. One day during training, Young's female police officer, Lisa Chen, approached Isabella. Santos, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure, Lisa." How did you return to normal life? I mean, after experiencing so much, how can you work in ordinary jobs?" Isabella took a deep breath. "Lisa, normalcy is a choice. I make that choice every day." "But don't you miss it? The excitement, the adrenaline?" Isabella looked outside through the window. "Some days I miss it. But then I think about my customers at Sunrise Diner. Mrs. Goldstein's smile, Frank's coffee jokes. Real happiness is hidden in small moments, Lisa." This conversation greatly affected Lisa. She was also a young police officer who had experienced traumatic events, and Isabella's words gave her a new perspective. 6 months later, Isabella's life changed again. FBI Special Agent Sarah Williams visited her. Ms. Santos, I need to talk to you about the Colombia operation. Isabella's heart raced. That matter is closed. No, it's not closed. We found your family's killers. Isabella froze. What did you say? Those who killed your family have been caught. But we need your testimony. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. I'm not in that world anymore. Isabella, this isn't just for justice. It's for the safety of other families too. This decision was very difficult for Isabella. On one hand, she wanted to completely leave the past behind. On the other hand, she wanted her family's killers to be punished. That evening, she talked with Jonathan. What should I do, Jonathan? Isabella, you should do whatever you want. But know this, whatever decision you make, you have a place here. This support gave Isabella strength. The next day, she called Agent Williams. I accept, but I have one condition. What? After I testify, my name is completely cleared, right? Completely. You are in victim status. Then I'll come. Going to Colombia was emotionally very difficult for Isabella. After 5 years, she was returning to the land where her family was killed. But this time, she wasn't running away. She was seeking justice. While testifying in court, Isabella's voice was trembling but determined. My family was innocent. They committed no crime other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The cartel leader's lawyer attacked Isabella. You were a soldier. You also spread death. Isabella looked at him. I defended my country. He killed innocent people. There's a difference. As a result of the trial, the cartel leader and his team received heavy sentences. For Isabella, this was the way to make peace with her past. When she returned to Miami, there was a big welcome at Sunrise Diner. Customers had come to show their support. Frank Morrison stood up and applauded. Justice was served, Isabella. You're a brave woman. Isabella was crying. Thank you. You're all like family to me. From that day on, Isabella felt completely free. She was no longer running from her past. She was living in peace with it. A year later, Isabella made one more small change. She became a partner in Sunrise Diner. Jonathan wanted to hand over the business because he was getting older. Isabella, you're the soul of this place. Who could manage it better? Isabella accepted this offer, but with one condition. The restaurant should remain open to everyone. No one should be excluded. The new Isabella was no longer just a waitress, but also a business owner, police consultant, and community leader. But most importantly, she was at peace with herself. One day, a young girl came to the restaurant. She said she wanted to be a soldier, but her family was afraid. Miss Santos, you were both a soldier and lived a normal life. Is this possible? Isabella looked at her. Of course it's possible. But remember who you are, where you belong. This is your decision. Others' fears shouldn't limit your life. These kinds of conversations were Isabella's favorite moments because she could use her own experiences as a source of inspiration for others. That evening, after the restaurant closed, Isabella was alone. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. She no longer had a past to hide. There was no need to be afraid anymore. She looked at the old photo in her pocket, the last photo taken with her family. You can rest in peace now, she whispered. Justice was served, and I'm happy. Isabella Santos was now completely free. Neither a Delta Force operator nor an ordinary waitress. She was herself, and that was perfect. Sometimes real power isn't in hiding who you are, but in accepting who you are. Isabella Santos had learned this, and now she was at peace with both her past and her future. Going home that night, Isabella smiled. Tomorrow she would wake up early again, come to the restaurant, and serve her customers. But now this wasn't hiding an identity, it was a life choice. And this choice made her completely free.